The extreme left-wing media, shilling for the Liberals, tries to get Pierre in a gotcha moment, and he shuts her down because he can't be got like that. Welcome to my channel, y'all. I hope you're having a great day. Now, before we get into this, I would like to ask you a very big favor. It's not actually a very big favor at all. It's kind of a small favor. Just like this video, share with your friends, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification. YouTube is trying to suppress my videos, and a lot of people have been unsubscribed. So check to make sure that you're still subscribed, and subscribe if you haven't already, and share this out to as many people as you possibly can. That way the message gets out and people see this video, and then the algorithm will push it out further. So now that that's out of the way, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video. A couple of days ago, Pierre Poilievre was at a presser in the Lower Mainland in the South Surrey White Rock area, I believe it was, and he was asked by a Globe and Mail reporter about the handgun freeze, whether or not he was going to eliminate the handgun freeze. And Pierre answered it very effectively, but that didn't satisfy her. So right now, let's go to that press conference. We're going to start with the question before hers, and then we're going to roll right into her question, and then we'll talk about it.
All right. From BCV News, Mr. Poilievre.
Yes, sir.
About the safety, street safety.
Yes, sir.
Many in the Chinese-Canadian community are concerned about rising crime, but they also fear being unfairly targeted or profiled under criminal policies. How will the government make sure that public safety measures protect everyone equally without creating fear or divisions among immigrant communities? Thank you.
Thank you. That is a very important question. We need to end the fear. After the lost Liberal decade, crime is raging out of control. Violent crime is up 50%. Gun crime up 116%. Drug overdose deaths are up 200% and almost 300% here in British Columbia. The catch and release hug-a-thug policies of Liberals have endangered our communities and threatened our kids. In communities across the Lower Mainland, parents are having to go to soccer pitches and form lineups walking down the field to look for crack pipes and dirty needles. And our families are terrified that their kids are going to step on a dirty needle when they go to a park. This chaos, this Liberal chaos, cannot continue. We need a change. And only Conservatives will deliver that change. Change so you can afford food and homes, but change so that you're safe in your street. And our plan is to lock up criminals with a 3 strikes you're out law, 3 serious offenses, and the offender will not get out of jail for at least 10 years. No bail, parole, probation, or house arrest. It will be jail, not bail. Second, we will repeal the catch and release laws, C-75, C-5, and C-83 that the Liberals and the NDP brought in. Third, we will bring in life sentences for fentanyl trafficking, human trafficking, and gun trafficking. It is in this way that we will bring home the safety that Canadians used to take for granted. Safety for you and your family, safety in all of these wonderful communities. I'll just conclude on one thing: guns. Gun crime is raging out of control after the lost Liberal decade, up 116%, because Liberals have reduced penalties for gun smugglers and criminals and left our borders open to trafficking of firearms, all the while wasting billions of dollars trying to ban hunting rifles. They have spent millions of dollars without taking a single gun off the street. Enough going after hunters and sport shooters who have licenses. Let's go after the real criminals and secure the border. That's how we're going to bring a change. So the choice in the election is, do you want a 4th Liberal term of crime and chaos, or do you think it's time for a change with Conservatives so you can be safe in your community?
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Stephanie Levis with the Globe and Mail. Following up on that a bit, will you keep in place or repeal the current national freeze on the sale of handguns?
Criminals are able to get handguns everywhere they go. In fact, we have more handguns in Canada after the lost Liberal decade than we ever have. The problem, according to the police, the problem is illegal guns coming in from the United States of America. So that's why the police believe with my approach in life sentences for handgun and other firearm traffickers. They believe in securing the border against traffickers and in mandatory prison sentences for those who use guns in violent crime. The police have said that the current Liberal policies just prevent off-duty police officers and military veterans from practicing their craft without going after the criminals who caused the crime. So my approach will be to lock up the criminals, secure the borders, and stop the crime for a change. And that's the choice in this election. Do we want a fourth Liberal term of crime and chaos, of growing gun crime, or do we want a change with a new Conservative government that will ban all illegal guns, will secure our borders, and lock up the criminals? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Answering the question, are you going to keep in place
Sorry.
the handgun ban or not?
Sorry, thank you very much.
Sorry. Next question.
Well, he actually did answer the question. No, he's not going to keep the handgun ban in effect because it doesn't do anything. Keeping guns out of the hands of people who do not commit crime does not reduce crime and does not make anything safer. He answered that question. It just wasn't the answer she wanted because she wanted to get him in a gotcha moment. And she wanted to do this on behalf of the Liberals because if Pierre came out and said, no, I'm not going to keep that ban in place, like he actually did, only he did it in a different way. But if he actually spoke those words, then the Liberals will use it against him. And for what reason? This is only ever brought up during an election period. And as I said, keeping guns out of the hands of people who do not commit crimes does not make Canada any safer. As a matter of fact, this actually leads into something that just happened in the United States. It was a study that was released about the use of handguns by civilians or the use of firearms by civilians to stop mass shootings. And I think you will be very interested in the results. Now, I know a lot of Liberals will say, but this isn't the United States. Well, guess what, Liberals? You guys use U.S. statistics all the time regarding firearms to justify gun grabs and justify more strict laws on Canadians. So you can't complain when we throw it back in your face that you're completely wrong, because statistics have shown that civilian use of firearms save more lives than, well, even the police. So let's go to that study and see what it says. So this is a study by John Lott and Carlisti E. Moody. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And they are doing this on behalf of Crime Prevention Research Center. And Mr. Moody is also a professor of economics at the College of William and Mary. And this study was done on April 3rd of this year. They start by pointing out that the FBI tracks active shooter cases where individuals attempt to kill people in public places, excluding those tied to robberies or gang violence, so they're not counting those. The study is the first to systematically compare how uniformed police and civilians with concealed handgun permits perform in stopping these attacks. Civilians with permits stopped the attacks more frequently and faced a lower risk of being killed or injured than police. Officers who intervened during the attacks were far more likely to be killed or injured than those who apprehended the attackers later. And there's very good reason for this, because the police are targets when they show up. They're in uniform, they're targets. Apprehending somebody after the fact is they know who they're going after, for one. So if a police officer shows up to an active shooter, they don't know necessarily who the shooter is unless that person is armed and actively taking shots when they show up. So they could be ambushed, and often are. And that is a huge, huge problem. I'm going to link this study in the show notes of this video so you can download it and read it at your leisure. But right now, let's jump ahead to page 15, because that's the final page of this report, and it sums everything up quite nicely. The results favor intervention by armed citizens. Unlike uniformed police officers, armed citizens are already on the scene and don't stand out as obvious threats to the shooter. In contrast, police face significant disadvantages. They rarely happen to be present when an attack begins. And if a potential attacker sees an officer nearby, he is likely to either wait for the officer to leave the area or move on to a new target. Shooters all who decide not to alter their plans will likely choose to attack the visible uniformed officers first. While taking on an officer may not be easy, it becomes the first objective when the shooter sees that the officer is armed and in uniform. Off-duty, undercover, and plainclothes officers share the same tactical advantages as armed citizens. It would be valuable to compare their effectiveness directly to that of civilians. However, we found that only 2 cases where shooters interacted with non-uniformed officers, so we can't yet test whether uniforms themselves make it harder for police to intervene effectively. That comparison will have to wait for more data. Our findings show that armed citizens are significantly more effective than uniformed police at stopping potential mass shootings. This result isn't a criticism of law enforcement, it simply reflects the tactical realities they face. Their uniforms make them visible targets, and longer response times gives attackers more opportunity to cause harm. This result also suggests a broader conclusion. Having armed citizens dispersed throughout public spaces improves public safety. Conversely, gun-free zones are likely to be counterproductive, a view supported by other research showing that the overwhelming majority of public mass shootings, happen in such zones, so gun-free zones. Armed citizens are not trained like police officers as to the correct response to an active shooter event. Consequently, they could make the situation worse by inserting themselves into the event. Our analysis soundly rejects that idea. In fact, we find the opposite to be true. Armed citizens do not interfere with police, and in active shooter situations, they reduce deaths and injuries significantly more effectively than the police. All results, programs, and data are available in the online appendix. So I'm not suggesting that we go to a totally armed society up here in Canada. However, if they're licensed, it's probably not going to cause any real damage. But think of it this way. I was a police officer for 34 and a half years, 33 and a half with the RCMP, but yet now that I'm retired, I cannot carry a gun. Let's say I was able to carry a gun and maybe had some identification on me showing that I was a retired police officer, and I came across something that I had to intervene with, or maybe I just stumbled across something. Well, I could neutralize that threat if I had a firearm. And this study isn't saying that civilians are more effective than police. No, what they're saying is that because the citizens are present and they're not identified as a threat, they can effectively intervene, where the police have to respond from sometimes miles and miles away. Now, the police are very good at apprehending after the fact when a suspect has already fled. Obviously, that would not be a very good job for civilians to do. And when a police officer is present, they're considered to be a threat by the shooter, and they're ambushed. They're taken out first. So this makes total sense. And it also shoots down all of the theories of all of the people who totally hate guns and thinks that people should be completely unarmed. For those of you who think that taking firearms away from civilians is a good idea, this study totally contradicts that. There's also other studies out there. Matter of fact, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, did a study way back in the Obama years, and they proved that armed citizens used firearms in a defensive manner, sometimes up to 3 million times per year. That doesn't mean that people were actually shot or that a firearm was discharged. No, the presence of the firearm was enough to diffuse the situation. So there's lots of studies out there that prove that firearms aren't the issue. It's people. People are the issue. But since we vet all of our firearm owners in Canada, how does it make any sense at all to take firearms away from people who don't commit crimes? It doesn't make any sense. Because if you take firearms away from people who don't commit crime, then the only people who will have firearms are the people who commit crime. Think about that. Well, those are my opinions, and I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends, and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, please join me on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time for my live stream on both YouTube and Rumble, where you're invited to join in on the conversation. Finally, if you wish to get your Canadian firearms license, I teach the required courses, so if you reside on Vancouver Island and you want to take a course from me, there are links in the show notes of this video where you can sign up for one. And I am trying to get together enough students to put on a May course, so please look me up in the show notes if you want to take one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.